Red Bull aren't strangers to stirring up the pot and making headlines in the F1 world. This past weekend was no different, as the team reached its boiling point as Helmut Marko, the team's head of driver development, said a few things that went over the line, to put things mildly. That and Verstappen's complaints about the F1 calendar's ever-growing state in today's video. This week, the Red Bull senior advisor stirred up quite a buzz by implying that Perez's varying performance this season might be linked to his South American background. Marko's exact statement was, he is South American, and that's why his head is not as focused as Max Verstappen's or Sebastian Vettel's was. Since his statement hit the headlines, both the team and Marko have been bombarded by Sergio Perez and Mexican fans of the sport for Marko's offensive remarks. Because of this, Marko would go public on Service TV Sport and Talk to apologise, where he would say, "I would like to apologise for my offensive remark and want to make it absolutely clear that I do not believe that we can generalise about the people from any country, any race, any ethnicity. I was trying to make a point that Checo has fluctuated in his performance this year, but I was wrong to attribute this to his cultural heritage. But this public apology would not deter the condemnation that he would receive, as the organisers of the Mexican Grand Prix would be the latest to release a statement in support of Perez. At the Mexico GP, we express our support to the Mexican driver Sergio Checo Perez. Inappropriate comments have no place in any environment, including sport. It is important that action is taken to prevent it and that apologies are made where necessary. We invite everyone to build a more respectful and united Formula One community, encouraging healthy competition both on and off the track." Before this statement from Marko, Perez had made it clear that he had been doubting whether or not he should stay with Red Bull beyond his 2024 contract. In an interview with DAZN, he would say, "I think that now, with the season we've had, it's important in the next races to be in an environment where I feel I can contribute. And if that place in 2024 isn't here, then we have to look for alternatives. But for now," he continued, "my main focus is to stay here and win more races, and keep on winning championships with Red Bull. As you say, I have a contract for next year, so at some stage next year, we'll see. Only time will tell if Red Bull will take matters into their own hands because, as we speak, it seems as if the F1 world has had enough of Marko's antics and wants him fired from his position." Moving on to his teammate Max Verstappen, the Dutch driver has made it known on multiple occasions in the past that he isn't much of a fan of the ever-expanding F1 calendar. The latest was in an interview with the Dutch publication Formule.nl, where he would say, "Has it been enough? Yes, I've always said 24 race weekends is a lot. It's not just about the races, but everything around it makes it tough. All marketing activities, the simulated days, the personal sponsorship obligations. In fact, you don't have any days off left. I often talk about that with people around me. Those are all things that factor into deciding how long to keep going. Of course, I am glad that I am in the position that I can make those future decisions myself." At the time, it seemed as if F1's chief executive Stefano Domenicali was sympathising with Verstappen's concerns, but now the F1 executive has done a complete 180 as he believes that the drivers should not be allowed to dictate the future of Formula One. He told De Telegraaf, "I think it's good that Max gives his opinion, but we can't leave the sport in the hands of the drivers, not because they can't be trusted, since we listen to them, but because they have to look at the bigger picture, and they don't always do. Their goal is to go as fast as possible, but we as an organisation are in charge of doing what is best for the sport, and we have done so in recent years. Otherwise, we would not be in this position. As you can see, MotoGP and other sports are also abandoning the traditional approach, and we were the first to do so." While Verstappen may see the abundance of races in one Formula season as draining, former F1 champion and legend Sir Jackie Stewart said that Verstappen should consider it a luxury. Speaking to Bild, Stewart would paint us a picture of how hard it was to win during his days in Formula One, as there were much fewer chances to prove that you were the best. He said, "When I became world champion for the first time in 1969, we only competed in 7 Grand Prix. This year, the calendar consisted of 24 races, although 2 were cancelled. Given the number, you can afford to have a bad weekend and still have a chance of winning the title afterwards. But that is only half the truth. The iconic F1 legend also mentioned that during his racing heyday, he logged more annual miles on the road than today's drivers, taking part in a staggering 65 races per year. At the peak of his career, he engaged in rallies, IndyCar events, touring championships, and various other competitions to secure his financial footing. He reflected, stating, "How would you describe the job of Verstappen, Hamilton and co? Exactly. All they do all year long is compete for their team. Back then, I still had to drive in rally, IndyCar, touring championships, and many other competitions to earn enough money. While drivers now drive 24 races a year, I had 65 when I was at my peak. This meant that we travelled a lot more back then. My record for most Atlantic crossings in 1 year is 61. Don't forget, there were no private jets back then. I flew regular flights. This is unimaginable for most drivers today." But Stewart would end his statement about Verstappen on a positive note. The F1 legend rained praises on Verstappen. He believes that the 25-year-old driver has already matured beyond his age in the sport. Stewart would attribute Verstappen's rapid maturation to his early start in F1. As we all know, Verstappen had an early start in Formula One, driving his first race at the tender age of 11. The F1 legend suggested that the Dutch driver was not a normal 25-year-old, saying in an interview with the German publication Bild, "Usually drivers develop until their late 20s, but to be honest, I don't see much room for Verstappen to improve. No matter whether it's raining, windy or hot, Max gets the absolute maximum out of the car everywhere." He has been racing Formula One since he was 17 and has much more experience than others his age. And now that Verstappen is on the brink of his third straight title, his former teammate Pierre Gasly would give insight as to why he thinks the Dutchman has been so dominant. When you put all good ingredients together, you end up with a good dish. If you're trying to do a good pizza with rotten tomatoes, it doesn't work. They've got a good base, they've got a good car, they've got an excellent driver. He is the focus of their team. Everything is performing at its best at exactly the same moment, which is why they have ended up with such domination. He's, Verstappen, performing at his best. I think Red Bull's car is objectively and definitely the fastest in this paddock. They are making very few mistakes. They're often the best at pit stops. They're just on top of their game, and there is nothing really which seems to unsettle them, especially on his side of the garage. So, what do you make out of all of this? Will Marko's statement be the final straw that breaks the camel's back, pushing Perez out the back door? Is Verstappen complaining too much about how arduous an F1 season is becoming? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.